Imagine being a world champion martial artist, but one injury changes your entire plan. This right here, this moment where the ground shakes, is where real leadership is built. Welcome back to yet another episode of our podcast, Bookshelf to Boardroom. And today is a very rare opportunity for all of us. We get an opportunity to learn and capture the essence of the man himself, Mr. Aslak de Silva. And I already started with some introduction, but let me make it more crisp. He's a world champion, black belt in martial arts. He has been the CEO of Self-Fly Store and Nordic Business Forum. He is the author of an international bestseller book, Black Belt in Leadership. And as I learned just this morning, I think it got nominated for a Harvey Shoot Book Award as well. And if you're not already impressed, my dear listeners, he's also a keynote speaker, an executive coach, and also a podcaster. So, with that, hi Aslak, thank you so much for joining us today. If you have not already figured this out, we are thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much, Prakriti. Feel humble here with all your credentials there for the start, but thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you here today.
Thank you. All right, so Aslak, to help you connect with our audience better, even though I already did give an introduction for you, if you had to introduce yourself or describe yourself in just three words, what would they be and why?
That's a tough question. I'm a family man, a former martial artist, and a leader.
Family man, martial artist, and a leader. All very self explanatory and also very, very holistic. So, thank you for that. And with that, we'll jump right into our first segment, and it's called Roots and Identity.
Hmm.
So it's often said that leadership doesn't start when you get that title, that fancy title. It starts much earlier. So is there anything from your leadership, from your childhood that, when you think back and reflect, that was slowly shaping the kind of leader you are today?
Well, for sure. I'm half Sri Lankan, half Finnish. So when I was born and raised in Finland, I always said that I was the odd one out. So when I was growing up, so there were not very many diverse background people where I was living. I mean, I noticed that I had fun with friends, and they often came to me to ask questions like, okay, what should we do? And they were kind of trusting me to lead them somewhere, whatever the play was or the game that we were playing for. So I kind of noticed that people were coming to me and then asking, what should we do? So then I felt that I might have something there that I could become a leader someday. And then that basically was the start for anything. But then I also noticed that, okay, when you grow up in Finland, so kind of being honest and transparent are the kind of values that we live by. So those were kind of then the grounds for my leadership as well, that, hey, let's keep an honest discussion constantly. You have to be honest, and what you demand from yourself, you can demand from the others as well. So kind of like those kind of early steps were shaping the way I saw that what would be a good leader in myself. I made plenty of mistakes. I misused my power sometimes to make something that I individually wanted to do, and so on. And those were of course, the lessons learned for the future career as well.
You spoke about Finland, you spoke about transparency and trust. So if we double click on that, and Finland as a country or a community, if there's some lesson that all of us young aspiring leaders can take from this country as a whole, what would it be?
It's just like valuing each other. It's very kind of everybody has equal opportunities in Finland in a way. Everybody's in the same line, so you cannot buy yourself out with money or regardless of your background. So you have equal opportunities to succeed. And kind of we value open conversation. Everybody has their opinions. We're listening to everybody, regardless again, if regardless of the gender, your background, anything. That's then a good ground for that to understand that, yeah, equality in Finland is very, very strong. Yeah.
Yeah, and how we can take that forward even with our teams or our company that we work for or our even building, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if you start with that, so then you can start building it. So kind of everybody can be themselves when they work for the company. And I mean, especially when working in international environments, I've seen that it's hard to admit, for instance, that I don't know or I
Yeah,
cannot do that or ask for help. So, but in Finland, these are kind of common values that everybody shares, and you can just ask those stupid questions or even admit that, hey, I don't know about this. So when I'm interviewing people for different positions, so in Finland, often it goes that they are saying that, hey, well, I don't know, I can't do that. And compared to like, for instance, in the US, where they're saying that I can do anything you want me to do. And there's a huge
yeah,
difference there, that kind of how much can you trust what the person is saying. And it's not that they're lying, but it's just in the culture in a way differently. So you need to be able to kind of understand different cultures and what they're saying. And in Finland, it's very simple. Everybody's kind of more or less saying what they mean and what they
Mhm.
think. So you can take the word as they say it. Yeah.
Got it. That was super helpful. Thank you for sharing that. And now we're going to switch our gears a little bit and talk about this very interesting word called sisu. You've spoken about this in the book. You've also spoken about this in your own podcast. My understanding of the word is resilience with kindness and gentleness, which also I learned from one of your interviews. You want to talk more about sisu?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I mean, Sisun is strongly related to resilience. And then I think it comes from the background of centuries in Finland that when basically the environment is tough, when it's super cold in winter and dark, and you still just kind of move forward, and you don't just give up. You just kind of think of the goal that you're here for, and yeah, just go for it. And then I have to give credit for Dr. Elisabeth Lahti, who's really researcher of Sisu, who then is bringing up this gentle power in it. So kind of it's not only about toughness itself, but it can also be kind of gentle and understanding in a way that it's not about the power itself. It's more like that you as a person just move forward and still have warmth in your heart. So that's what I kind of love when we turn it into the kind of leadership angle. So it's not about being only tough and kind of perseverance there or pushing through. It's also about understanding the situation and being gentle for yourself and for the team. So that's not that often talked about when if you mention Sisu in Finland. So it's more about the resilience and toughness, and nothing, maybe the softness or the gentleness is missed there. But I think I love that how Dr. Elizabeth Lafty frames it, that it should be part of that as well.
So, on this, we talked about two terms, right? Gentleness and resilience.
Mm,
I want to understand two different things. One is on resilience. When do we know to stop? Basically, we are all told that as leaders, you have to have patience, you have to have perseverance.
mm,
But how do we differentiate between whether we're being patient or we're just avoiding something that we just don't want to take care of right now? And in perseverance, when are we showing resilience or when are we just being arrogant and like, we have got to accept that to let it go, move on. So what do you
mm.
want to talk, what do you want to say about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, for me, it means in a way that if you have a vision, you have a belief that you can win the game or just go through. So then you should push through. I mean, if you have a vision or a belief that, hey, things can get better, so then you should continue. You don't give up even if it's hard. Sometimes it feels like, hey, we will not succeed. It's been super hard, but we still have a vision where we're going for. We believe that there's a way to kind of overcome the obstacles and just go through. Then you should continue. Then there's the other one when you kind of start demanding, where you are kind of saying that you should do that, or you feel that, hey, that it's not my task to get you through, it's your task. And then those are kind of pushing, you're kind of trying to get the kind of release the accountability from your side yourself. And as a leader, you should be able to build the path through rather than just ask and demand. So in my opinion, those are kind of two sides of it. So if you don't yourself don't see the way through, or you don't kind of have a vision, you cannot support, you cannot motivate and the team, so then it's too much to ask, and then you should just stop, because then comes burnout or something else. Kind of you stress people too much when you're just demanding and asking, but you don't support with the solution. So there's what I think in Sisu. So when many times when Sisu is introduced, so we talk about the war times in Finland, where like winter war, something where it was super cold and the enemy was stronger, but still you kind of push through. So there was a vision what you should do, even if it's hard. And that's the difference. It wasn't just kind of blindless attacks. It was very smart things that these kind of soldiers were doing that time, skiing for a long time and just attacking from the enemy from the angles that they were not expecting. And that's required sisu. And on the other hand, if it was more like that you have no plan, you just march through and just kind of try to do something. So then you shouldn't push through that at that time.
Got it. But this is about powering through, and what plan do you have or awareness you have to do so. But in your book, you've also talked about rest, reset, and refresh, right? Not a concept that a lot of people talk about because we're all about go, 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 let's achieve this, let's do that. And we do not usually give more importance or more awareness or intentional thought to resetting and refreshing. And I thought your ideas in the book were very refreshing. You want to touch a little bit on those?
For sure, yeah, yeah. I mean, I come from the martial arts background, so when you have a full contact fight, so even if the rounds are for a minute or a few minutes, so nobody can push through constantly. So the first one is to kind of understand that when you need to spend maximum amount of energy and when you should not spend. I mean, other examples could be investing in a way that, yeah, there are lots of ideas where you should invest your money, but where would you put all your money in? So you need to be careful with that. So the rest itself kind of gives you more time to think that, okay, where should I spend my energy? What's the kind of the risk I'm willing to take? Similarly, sometimes you need to prepare for yourself. So, I mean, I use as an example that if you knew that you were going to fight in the World Championship tournaments in 3 months, so how would you prepare yourself for that? So, for sure, in the beginning, you would start training hard and preparing yourself. But just before the fights, you would want to rest as much as you can so that when the fight starts, you are recovered. And this is often something that in leadership angles we miss. So we are pushing constantly through and asking for the team to push through and even ourselves. And we don't take these small breaks where we would actually recover just to be prepared when it's needed the most. And of course, in business setting, we don't know exactly the same way as you would know in a world championship fights. There's certain dates, but if we forget to rest and recover, so our energy level is constantly depleting, and we are not prepared for the time when it's needed. And the same way, then we can plan the whole year in a way that okay, those are the stressful times, so we can prepare ourselves, even the mind and body, to take in the stress when it comes in. So this is what I'm coaching. When you said that I'm executive coach, I'm coaching leaders to kind of prepare themselves for the times when the energy is most needed. And this kind of variance is then super important, that you are not constantly working with the same energy, but you kind of have the peaks from both sides when you're not spending energy and when you need a lot of energy, so that you have that. And this is important, kind of the long term longevity of being able to lead people, but also personally, that you kind of grow. So you don't grow if you constantly train hard. You grow when you kind of have peaks of hard training and recovery. And that's when the growth happens, both in physical and mental level, I'd say. Yeah.
Yes, the whole concept of being cognizant and managing your energy well. And in your podcast with Dr. Lati, I think she also mentioned a fun story where she was talking about the long runs that she did. And if she's coming across an uphill, and instead of running, you walk those, because your goal is not to, outsmart everyone else in that particular lap. It's to kind of sustain for a long period of time. And then how do you strategically manage your energy? So I totally understand what you're saying. But think about a time when you know all of this, but you are in so much pressure and there is so much noise that you're not able to think straight. So, for you personally, how do you get more clarity? Do you like to walk it out, talk it out, sleep it out, or just like wait it out?
Yeah, that's a good question. So of course, there are many levels of it. So micro breaks are one key. So again, in if you look at the martial arts fight, so there's like, let's say there's a 5 minute round or 3 minute rounds, but then you have that 1 minute break and then you go back. So during that break, you're not trying to recover up to the level that you were before the fight, but you're still trying to recover as much as possible. So I take these small breaks when stressed. So it can be anything from breathing exercise into meditation, or just kind of get your mind out of it and breathe couple of deep breaths and then go back. So that helps you kind of recalibrate quickly and like see where you're going for. Then, of course, if I have a time, so I tend to kind of train physically hard during the hard times as well. So I tend to actually take a break quite early in the afternoon. I have two daughters who are figure skaters, so they have trainings at 3 p.m. or earlier. So I'm more than happy to take that maybe 2 hours break and go train myself as well at the same time. So when you kind of have the strong physical activity, so your mind rests a bit and that releases the kind of the stress hormones so that you are way better off, and then you can come back. So this kind of deliberate break. So I remember when when my daughter was born, the first one. So I noticed that it's impossible to work like 16 hours in one job. So if you were at the office and worked 16 hours, you were totally out. Or if you took care of the baby for 16 hours alone, you were totally off. But if it was 8 hours working in the office and 8 hours taking the baby, you could do that. So you kind of need to shift the way you stress your body and mind. So you can do different things hard for a long time. But if it's one thing that you're constantly doing, so then you cannot do that. So kind of having these breaks, changing what you're working with and with your mind and body. So that kind of helps you in that moment. And then again, preparation is key here as well. That I'm when I have holidays, so I'm training super hard physically, so that then my kind of physical level improves. So when the stressful situations at work come, so I can deal with those better. And again, exercise helps with stress hormones, so that's super key in my mind. But similarly, breathing exercises and meditation, kind of like that, you kind of can let go of the stressful thoughts. That helps you a lot as well.
So micro breaks, maybe reading, maybe stretching your brain, switching things around, keeping it interesting. So we're going to do exactly same with our podcast as well. Till now we were asking questions. Now we're going to play a game. Are you ready?
I am ready. Yeah.
Okay, so the game is super simple. I'm going to ask you a couple of statements, and you have to answer either fight, flight, or pause. Fight means in that situation, you take a stance, you maybe change the direction, or there's some active involvement. Flight is you let the rhythm go, you let things go, and you just don't interfere with it. And pause is when you yourself or your team, you ask them to just take a pause, rethink, reevaluate, research before you take another action. Are the rules clear?
They are clear. Yeah.
Awesome. So the first one is you come across a promising opportunity for maybe a product or a service in your company to explore, but it's not directly aligned with your core offerings. What do you do?
Fight.
Okay. An emotional outburst in a high stakes meeting from any of your team member. What do you do?
Pause.
A competitor is accelerating their product launch ahead of you.
That's a tough one. Depends a lot on the situation, but I would say fight.
Right. And finally, the last one, a high performer is burning out right in the middle of a critical deliverable.
Pause.
Pause. All right. I would let our listeners interpret what they would have said in these situations. And if they have any more questions on why you answered the way you did, they can always pop their questions in the comments below and we'll take them up later. With that, we're moving to our next segment, which is called Vision and Creating the Future. And I will start with the most obvious question for me. For those who may not know you, this will be super exciting for them. So let me start by telling all our dear audience that did you know that Aslak knew almost 10 years before becoming a world champion that he was going to become one. So it wasn't a hope, it was more about knowing. How can we normal people do the same like you did, Aslak?
Yeah, I mean, you've been doing your background check quite well, so understanding the thanks for that. But, I mean, it's about a kind of maybe it's first it's a dream that okay, you ask yourself that okay, what would I dream to become? And then when you see that, so then you ask yourself the path. So okay, that's my dream. What would it require from me to get there? And then you ask yourself that am I willing to work hard enough to get there? And then you start kind of understanding. So it could be I talk about Tetris blocks or Lego blocks. So then kind of you see the path that okay, that's my dream. That's what's required me. Am I willing to do that? And then basically actually ask myself almost every day, every morning that am I willing to do that? So what, in my opinion, what happens with many others is that they ask themselves once and then they start the path and then maybe a few years later they ask and they have kind of more doubts. But if you ask that every morning from yourself that am I willing to do that? What's my goal? What's my dream? Is that still there? So you start kind of dealing with your doubts before they happen, and then you kind of take those steps forward. And that's then what happens is that every day you take a step forward towards the dream, towards the vision, towards that direction, and that's how it in the end then happens. There are no guarantees that they can happen. I mean, for me, it happened. I was lucky enough to actually win the world championships, but 2 weeks before the actual tournament, so I sprained my ankle. And so then I had to kind of think through that, okay, I have now 2 weeks time. Can I recover all the preparation that I had? So I made a decision that regardless of what happens to my ankle, I will try my best. Um, and I was lucky enough that the ankle was good enough in the fights, but I had to kind of make a different strategy for the fights that I was planning. I was going for second world championships and I broke my hand just before we were like 2 months before we were going there. That was a different call, like bones broken. There's nothing I can do. I had to
Yeah.
just kind of say that no, I cannot go back. But like I said, I was lucky enough to win in the first time, but I lost the second chance to go for. And then when I again was training back, so I broke my hand again. I had my knee operated in between, so there was kind of no guarantee, but the everyday work, like direction and asking yourself that am I willing to do the work needed? So with that, you can actually get there. And likely, I mean, I've got my dreams and I'm like the goal that I had when I was 10 years younger. So those were achieved. And I strongly believe that that is the case for many of us as long as we just kind of follow the path.
Yeah. First of all, wow, it almost felt like a movie script. Like, you have your big day coming and then you have this big hurdle coming up. But what I did keep hearing again and again in your response was about action. So, separates average from great is not just thinking. So, some people will say, I want to do this. I want this. Someone will say, I want to take action on this. And that
Hmm.
separates half of us. The ones left, some do actually take actions, the others just think about taking an action. That separates the half of us. The ones who do take action, some given their 100%, like you were telling, I'm just going to re-strategize and give it my best with all the preparation I have. And some just do the bare minimum job. That separates the half of the audience. And what you have remaining are the ones who achieve greatness and realize their utmost potential. So thank you for that. I have a follow up which is related to, you've talked about all these big achievements that you've had. You've also been the CEO of big, corporations. My question is, how do you still have a learner's mindset? How do you still have that energy or that motivation to keep learning, to keep exploring, to find something new, and you kind of keep building on that? Don't you feel like, okay, I'm done. I think I've done enough already?
That is actually a really good question because, like, in a way, so for instance, for martial arts, so kind of I feel that, okay, I got enough, so I'm not training anymore for world championships. Of course, you get older and that's not doable. But for then leading businesses or kind of my career, so I feel that I can be a lot better than I have ever been before. I see the path through, and I also see that I need more experience. So similar as you were saying that I knew 10 years before kind of going to the world championships that I will become world champion. So similarly, I see every day now that in 10 to 15 years, I'll be a superb leader, that I feel that I can be so much better than ever before. So that keeps me motivated. And similarly, every morning I ask myself again, do I want that? What will it require? So then I need lots of learning and a lot of understanding, talking to people, analyze how I'm leading people, and kind of taking those breaks and then just kind of regroup myself, which I've been doing now. So I left Self-Restore more than 6 months ago. So I've been having a time to kind of think through myself as well, keeping up my podcast, talking to interesting people, reading books, like learning constantly so that I could become better. And then I feel that, okay, the best version of me as a leader is still to come. And there's a lot to work, lot more experiences to gain before I can say that that was the best version of me as a leader. So that's that keeps me motivated every day.
So if the secret sauce is to, keep learning, keep exploring, then for all those young aspiring leaders ahead who are so confused with the technology changing like at a supersonic speed, AI coming in, not sure which roles would stay relevant, which companies would stay relevant, or which industries would stay relevant, what advice or feedback would you give to all those who are trying to build their careers in this landscape?
Mm. A really good question. I mean, I don't know like what's going to happen, but like you were saying that it's maybe more about the action rather than thinking of what will happen. So we all know that tomorrow the changes are not going to be that big, right? So we just have to go for tomorrow and
Yeah.
do our best, be interested and take action, whether it's making sales calls or leading people or so on. So we take it day by day and move forward. Of course, we need to have a vision to some extent that we've kind of seen where the world is going. So I'm working a lot with AI tools. I'm not very tech savvy myself. I don't know how to code, but I have to learn that. So kind of there are certain things that we know that these are something that we need to learn and be good enough to kind of survive in the future with those skills that we have. And some of them are quick to learn, some takes time. And so I would invest in learning those things that you know already that you need to acquire, those skills that you need to acquire for the future. So just start today for those as well. And again, it doesn't require a lot. I use as an example. So I do pull-ups and I count them. So I've been counting them for a decade or more. And so my goal for this decade is to do 40,000 pull-ups. I'm 20,000 past now, but I need to kind of pick up the pace a bit more. So I've been doing on average 8 per day, and I would need to do 10, a bit more than 10 per day for a decade. How to get there is to do that every day, right? Or maybe like I do, maybe every 3 days or once a week or so on. So then you can quite easily count how much effort you need to put in. If I was then to do on the last year, so 2029, try to do my best, so that would be hard. So again, advice for everybody is just to become better every day, work on those things, just small amount of working on those things that you believe are important in the future and take action every day. That takes you far rather than kind of thinking through for several years that what's going to happen. So you're already late with your personal development. It's easier to kind of change the direction a bit by bit or calibrate rather than invent something totally new and pick up some new skills that you never were aware of. So I believe all of you listening there have enough understanding what you should do today and tomorrow and just take that path. And when that kind of understanding gets better, take the new path that you need to do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, all young listeners, let us all focus on consistency, focus on measuring our progress and taking those small baby steps one day at a time towards our big, ambitious goal. With that, Aslak, now we're moving to another segment called adaptability and strategy. And again, I'm picking up something that you had mentioned in your book, and it talks about if you are good at just one trick as a, say, martial artist, then you become very predictable. So even if you are the best at that particular kick, you may not win because your opponents have already figured out a way to kind of tackle you. Similarly, in leadership, you talked about how you changed leadership from one company to other. You took a very conscious decision to do that. How does one decide what is the best way to lead forward in a particular situation? So how do you make those decisions?
Mm, that's a good question. I mean, again, experience helps in a way that when you do something, you put everything in, you try your best, and then you reflect. So why I'm doing the changes when I change the company, of course, that as a leader, if you constantly change from day to day, I've done that too. So kind of like I went for a course and learned something new and then told the whole team that, hey, I learned this new thing. Now we're going to do that. And it's very hard to be in a team where the leader every day changes their mind and thinks differently. So therefore, it makes sense to kind of not to do that every day, even if you're learning new stuff. So you can kind of put them on the side or maybe adjust a bit. And then when you make bigger changes, so when you change a company or something bigger happens, or you open
Yeah.
up a new market or something, so then you can take those kind of changes. So I noticed that I was. As an example in the book, I was saying that when I was CEO for Nordic Business Forum, so I felt that I wasn't still bold enough. I had some thoughts that what we could do differently, and then I felt that I was holding back. I was maybe afraid of the co-founders who were really excellent people. I was maybe afraid of the talking to the board of directors and say that, hey, this is actually what I think. So I was maybe more playing on a kind of a pleasant person that said that, hey, that I agree, and try to kind of get in the smart advice from everybody. But as a CEO, even if you do that, you still need to have your own mind. So when I step into self-restore, so I thought that, well, I'm still listening, but I'm more stronger with my opinions and bolder with my vision so that I can control what's happening. So if I make a mistake, so I will understand what was the mistake rather than blaming somebody else. So I took that approach more. Still, again, I feel that now when I was there, maybe too boldly kind of going for my vision. So I was listening to a lot of the C level or the leadership team that we had, but I missed some kind of advice from the board of directors. So now I know that the next step that I'm going to take. So if I ever work as a CEO in a company, so I will try to keep those good things where I was including and involving the leadership team with many thoughts and giving them responsibilities and let them make their own decisions. But at the same time, I need to follow more on the kind of the guidance of the board of directors, take their advice in, and maybe change something that I was thinking before because of the advice, rather than being quiet or pushing my own thinking. So there's still to learn on those kind of nuances. And again, that's why I feel that when you get more experience and when you are deliberately doing something, that helps you to become better. And this is what I see when I'm coaching others, is that they take advice, but they are not deliberately changing anything. So then the advice is lost. So you can always say that, like I was saying, that I understood that I should have been bolder at Nordic Business Forum, but I didn't do anything about it. I knew I didn't do anything about it. So that was my mistake. So that's something that I need to fix, in my opinion, for the next step that I'm taking. That whatever I felt that was not going the right direction, what was kind of my mistake in that sense, I need to change that. And a good position to change those is when you change a company or start a new project. So yeah, that's why I strongly believe as well that getting experience from many companies will help you in your career, because you see things differently. If you're just stuck in one, which can be great to have a career in one, but if you change companies and industries, so you learn new things, and that actually opens up your eyes a lot as a leader as well. That, okay, how can I lead different people? You work with different people, different nationalities, different ages of people. So that teaches you a lot as a leader.
So, Aslak, being at a position like a CEO or managing a company, and you were talking about your two experiences, which is like a fine balance between listening to other people and charting your way or your thoughts forward. How do you cut the noise? Because when you're listening to people, there's lots of information coming in. Even when you're thinking about yourself, there must be conflicting thoughts as well. How do you cut the noise and figure out at this position for this strategy or this company or this market, this is the right way forward? How do you figure that out?
Yeah. Again, a great question. You have really good questions. I mean, I have to kind of tie it in with martial arts again. So when you're fighting, so there are constantly people shouting what you should do. They are saying, pushing you, say that, hey, go for the extra kick, or you have
Yeah.
energy, and then you have a coach who's saying something. So you get constant feedback and advice from everybody. But you need to take action. So to me, to understand that, is like you were saying very smartly before, to kind of to get there, you just need to take action, and that's hard for many. So we tend to kind of collect information and think through, but we never take action. And what I often say is that what was in martial arts, it's very clear that you start as a white belt, and a black belt comes to you and shows this kind of a high jump kick very fast and says that do this. So you know that I cannot do that.
Yeah.
But when we get advice in leadership, when somebody says that, hey, let's build, I don't know, psychological safety in the workplace, and then you say, yeah, let's do that. But you will not understand what that means and what's the action unless you start doing that and realizing and understanding how it works in practice. So what happens often is when we learn as a leader, so we read these great books, listen to podcasts and others, so we kind of nod and say that we understand. But then my question is, can you do that in real life? If you can do that in real life, then you kind of have the understanding, knowledge, and the skill. But there's often a big gap, which is just kind of you can decrease the gap by action, trying out, making mistakes, learning, doing right things as well, because you learn from those as well. So kind of like just again, lead, try it out in practice, self-reflect, get feedback from your team, where it's going for. And then there are measurements. So for instance, there are these ENPS, which is an employee NPS score. So I've been following those for the teams that I've had. So how is it going? So with Self-Restore, we had from 20 in the beginning and the top was 78. So I could then see that in practice with measurements that what was the change, and then that was the feedback. And of course, talking to people and asking their opinions, am I better and so on. So get the feedback, compare the results, and then see how your actions actually impacted the big picture there.
Yeah. And when you were talking, the reason I could relate with it so easily was because I read a lot of books, listen to a lot of podcasts, and when you do that, the concepts essentially seem very simple. Oh, so as a leader, you have to, spread the praise, take the blame,
Mm.
easy concept to understand. When you're in that position, in that high stake meeting where there's, heated discussions, very critical timelines to meet, budgets to kind of fulfill, how do you still emulate those lessons that you've learned or listened to? Because they come with practice, like you said, you take actions and small actions. You sometimes fail, you learn, you improve, you fail again, you basically keep moving forward until you kind of internalize those lessons that you've learned. So beautifully explained. Thank you so much. With that, we're going to shift a little bit and talk about people and talent. Um, I'm sure you've been part of a lot of recruitments. Apart from CVs and skills and experiences, is there one skill that you always look for, irrespective of the position or the role you're hiring for?
Mm. I'd say that that has developed or evolved a lot. So today I'm looking at how we have a connection with that person individually. So I have realized that not everybody can succeed with me, and it's not dependent on the person themselves. It's more dependent on how I work, how I communicate. And if there's a click in a way that we kind of don't understand each other, or we don't get energized, we're not smiling in the discussion. So then I feel that, okay, that it's not going to work. So I'm looking at in a way that, okay, can I lead this person? Can I help them to be better? So that's what I'm looking for in those moments. And the other side is, of course, that do they bring in something that I don't have? So I'm not looking for kind of a mirror image of me. I actually wouldn't want to work for me. I believe that. So I don't want that. There needs to be some kind of a difference in the people that are in the team, and the diversity needs to build from there. That what are my weaknesses? So the team needs to kind of be able to kind of recover those
In
things,
that,
and
yeah.
be there, like fix my issues rather than tell me what are my problems. So that's what I'm looking for in recruitments today. Before I was looking for maybe skills, CVs, or communication skills or stuff like that. But nowadays I'm totally looking at from different side, especially when I'm recruiting for my team. Of course, then team members who are recruiting for their teams, then I might not take this approach to that extent. So that I let everybody who's the recruiting manager to make their own decisions. Of course, I can support, but then I'm letting them to make their decisions.
Yeah. When you talked about what is it that I bring and how can, the team that I hire can fill in those gaps, that also reminded me of this concept that I was reading in your book, where it was about, as a leader, you're not supposed to be perfect in every single thing, in every single task. You're supposed to be aware of things that you're good at and where you'll be able to add value and lead the team in, and then have the mental presence to be able to gather a team and facilitate it in a way that they can fulfill all the other things that you are not focusing on or working towards, so that together collectively as a team you can achieve that big goal that you're all working towards.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. Another quick one that I want to touch before we go to our fun rapid fire round is about difficult conversations. So I know you've spoken a couple of times about when you're going into a difficult conversations, you should never think like you're going to wing it and I'm just going to feel what I'm feeling in that moment and say what I'm feeling in that moment. You have to practice, you have to analyze scenarios that may pop up and the difficult questions that may come up as a result of that conversation. So, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Mm. I think my thinking has developed since I wrote the book in that as well. But I mean, often when we go to a difficult conversation, so nowadays I'd say that, or I can maybe say it more clearly than I was able to write in the book, was that we come with our assumptions. So we often come to with assumptions that let's say I'm leading a sales team that's saying to the salesperson that you are not active, you should call more to the client. So we come with these things that you are not, I believe you should do, and these are all assumptions. So that's why the preparation, in my opinion, is key. That you go for different scenarios. That what if this assumption is wrong? What is there something behind, or what if I have misunderstood or misinterpreted the situation? So when you kind of prepare yourself from different angles, so then you can kind of are prepared to kind of take the conversation as it comes and actually listen to the person and then together solve the situation. And I've seen that many times, and I believe many other leaders as well. Let's say that you feel that the person is not good enough to be in your team, and you want to have that difficult conversation that should the person be let go or not. You again come with assumptions there in the conversation that because I have felt this long time, so there must be something wrong, and now we need to just end this relationship here. And then if you're not preparing that what if I was wrong, or what could be the reasons, or how can we overcome this, or what were the mistakes that I did, so then it's super hard to have that kind of honest conversation which can elaborate the situation. So many times we come with the ready-made decision into these hard conversations, and I'm trying to say that that's not always the right case. That can be the case that you were right, but if you're not open to kind of have that conversation and really see what's there inside of
Yeah.
the person, and having that kind of open-minded thinking in that moment, so then it's not going to go well. And again, sometimes it's just better just to let go and just end up the conversation, because it's again might be super stressful for you personally. So then it's the right call for that side. But kind of if you are a good leader, you take those people as they are and take and value them and give them a chance to kind of work together with you. And then it's not anymore a similar difficult conversation. It's more like, okay, here's the situation. What are we going to do to change that? These are the expectations. What are we going to do to get there? And so on. So it's a totally different conversation after that.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That does add a more layer of depth and meaning to the whole concept of difficult conversation. So, thank you for sharing that. And now, I hope you're ready because we are into the rapid fire round. Very simple. First thing, first thought that comes in your mind, you have to say it forward, and there are going to be a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
So, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, the first one, a habit that all of us should drop immediately.
Doom scrolling.
All right. A book that every young aspiring leader must read.
Jim Collins is good to great.
Good to great. All right, made a note of that. Next one. What would you prefer? Consistency, which is doing one thing, being focused and doing it for a long time, or adaptability? We've talked about both concepts in this podcast so far.
Have to say adaptability.
All right. Next one. Would you prefer depth, going in depth of, say, a subject or a market, or breadth of that subject, skill? What would you prefer, breadth or depth?
For me personally, I'm breath still kind of
Breadth.
yeah.
Okay. Final one. Training alone or training with others?
That's a tough one, but we have to be the quicker ones, so training with others. Yeah.
Training with others. All right. So that brings us to our closing segment, which we call the final bow. And I want to ask you that in this conversation that we've had so far, is there a question that I should have asked you? Something that would be beneficial for all our listeners, our audience, and I didn't so far?
Hmm. A good one. You have had really good questions. So of course, this is very comprehensive already, but maybe one thing that, of course, coming from the Finnish background or being half Finnish and lived here, so I mean the how to have courage and self-confidence. So how to build that? Maybe that could have been the question that is important for leaders. So I know that like the work situation in Finland and in many countries is difficult, and we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to be the future work, like you were saying. What are the skills that we need? So kind of like how to build that self-confidence to kind of know that you are on the right track, regardless of not knowing what's going to happen.
So, how do we build that?
Yeah, again by action. But I mean, but I mean, being willing to learn, being kind of open-minded, constantly developing yourself. So have that kind of routines for that. So I start every morning by kind of opening up my body and mind. So I do some stretching and breathing, and I study something new. Sometimes it's maybe studying even politics, how they're talking there and what's going to happen in the world. Sometimes it's like marketing or sales or leadership or something AI or something. So just kind of have a routine that you learn something every day. So that's it kind of broadens up your thinking. And with that, then you kind of start understanding, of course, that you don't understand everything and you never will, and the world is changing constantly, but then you will also understand that, okay, I know something, and start building the kind of courage to try out new things. So even with limited information or limited understanding, so you start kind of moving forward and then take the action. But if you start learning in the morning and then you kind of take action with those lessons learned, so then step by step, day by day, you will kind of build your self-confidence and understanding. And again, sometimes you make mistakes or so misinterpret situations or something, and then you just kind of similarly next morning you start again,
Yeah.
learning something new, take action with that. So kind of don't dwell with mistakes or learn from them for sure, but I mean don't dwell. Often people say this that don't make the same mistake twice, and I've done the same mistake 100 times. I don't think we can learn immediately from the mistake because we never understand what the real mistake was. But again, we should try to learn from them.
Yeah.
So kind of
Yeah.
just move forward, take action, be better. That's the key then. Yeah.
And so you talked about building confidence, and you talked about how action is the only way to get there. And quick analogy for everyone. So there are people who are great at public speaking, right? And then there are some who are extremely afraid to get up on the stage. And thinking that people who are up on the stage and speaking fluently and seems like they're super confident, it's not something that has come naturally or magically in one day. They must have stepped on that stage a million times. Every time they came across some problem or figured out some flaw or something that they need to work on. Okay, so in that conversation, my throat chokes up. So I'm going to take some sip of water, or I'm going to take that preventive medicine. Or these are the things that I often forget to say. So I write them on a paper and I take that paper with me. Or I always feel scared looking at the front row. So I look here or look there, like just having your own particular tricks. And when you have that bag full of your tools that work for you, and then when you go up on the stage, you know everything that could have gone wrong, you've already fixed that out. And that brings in that confidence of preparedness and of preparation of many rounds and years. So, very well said, Aslak. With that, me and all my audience is very curious to know that which is the next mountain that you're preparing to climb? What's the next exciting thing that you're working on that's keeping you engaged, busy, and excited?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm in a bit in a crossroad, so hopefully soon I know what work I'm gonna do. I'm doing some executive coaching, actually more to the US now than here. I do keynote speaking, blogs, and everything. So I'm doing lots of things. So I'm not sure what's kind of the big next thing for me. But hopefully soon. So there are some conversations that I'm having. So I might take a role quite soon as well. Let's see. So, but meanwhile, I'm working with vibe coding. So I'm building this kind of the black belt in leadership kind of assessment for leaders to understand like, okay, what kind of leader they are based on martial arts metaphors. And I'm trying to learn how to build that course in a way that it automatically, based on your responses, builds you a kind of a white level course that you know what kind of actions you need to take, what kind of a person you are. So that I'm trying to kind of based on my own experience, I've been writing kind of and coaching other leaders and teams to kind of become better in their work. So I'm trying to automate that with AI. So that's kind of a
That's so
learning for
cool.
me to understand. And why I'm doing that is not only kind of make a business out of it or something. I want to learn to understand like when these tools are now developing, so how will that change? And in a way, like we already know that we are like, let's say that we work, nobody watches linear TV. We are watching Netflix and others when we want. We are doom scrolling. We are kind of getting short content. And so these all are changing. So I want to see how AI is changing coaching and leadership as well in a way that how we become better leaders, how we learn, how we study, and so on. So that's why I need to understand how that's built. So I'll be better at that regardless of if that's going to be my main business in the future or I'll be leading a company. So I need to understand that part. So that's what I'm working now, and hopefully I'll crack the code. I'm quite far, not fully there yet, but soon hopefully able to launch that kind of service for free of charge for leaders to learn that hey, how will I become the a white belt level leader so that I'm ready to grow to the next levels. Yeah.
Wow, I think this is super exciting. Me and everyone who's listening is wishing you all the best for
Thank you.
all the new exciting things that are coming up. And just a quick note for all our listeners. So, Aslak was talking about the what kind of leader you are. And if you finish reading his book, Black Belt in Leadership, I at least came across a code that took me to a test and I answered a bunch of questions and it told me what kind of leader I was and which was the leadership style where I needed to work on. So again, a fun thing. I don't know if you all will have access to it, but it was very fun for me at least to try it out. So Aslak, thank you again so much. You've been such an amazing host. So many nuggets of wisdom I've gathered and made notes of at the same time. If our audience want to find you or know more about you, what are the places they can go to?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for practically having me here. I mean, you had great questions and preparations here, so I love that, and I'm happy to hear that you found something there. So yeah, I'm the only Aslak de Silva in the world. So it's my name. If you Google that, so it should find quite easily. I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so just connect there and send me a message why you want to connect. So that helps me there. So then I can connect, and then I have a website called the Black Belt in Leadership, and my podcast the same name, and the book. So you can kind of find information there. But probably LinkedIn is the best way to kind of reach out to me, and if you want to have a chat or something, so happy to help you.
Thank you, Aslak. And for our audience, I know you would have enjoyed this podcast as much as I did. Some of our key learnings were it's not always about winning every fight, it's about staying present in the moment, taking actions, and just pushing through. If you have any questions for Aslak, drop them down in the comments below, and I'll try my best to get answers for you. With that, this is Bookshelf to Boardroom, and I will see you next time.